Hey, and welcome back. I'm Sallie, and this is the Sallie Ogden Show. And today's episode is such a good one. We're talking all about AI and what's actually happening, why it matters to the specific business that you are building, and what you need to understand before the gap between the founders who figured it out and the ones who haven't gets any wider. So grab your coffee, whatever it is that you're drinking to stay awake, and let's go further. So if you're the kind of founder who's actually paying attention right now, not performing, not avoiding, but who is actually watching and thinking carefully about where this whole AI thing is going, this episode is for you. I want to start there because I think it matters who I'm talking to. You're not here because someone scared you into clicking, and you're not here because you saw a reel about passive income and AI being able to replace every single thing that we ever did. You're here because you're running something real, a business with real revenue, real customers, real complexity, and you've been watching this entire AI conversation happen around you, and you're probably thinking, I need to understand this better before I make a move. And that instinct is right. In fact, that instinct is exactly right, because there are two conversations happening about AI right now, loudly, consistently, and absolutely everywhere. And neither one of them is actually telling you, the business owner, what you need to know. So the first one is fear. It is pure, unexamined fear. The sense that something enormous is happening and it's moving faster than anyone expected. And the only response available is to avoid it and hope that it sorts itself out before it comes to get you and eat you alive and everything disappears. I understand that response. I really do. And when something moves this fast and the implications feel this big, the avoidance feels protective. It feels even responsible. Like you're not going to do something reckless by jumping into something that you don't fully understand yet. But here's what I've watched happen to the founders who stay in this fear camp. They don't actually stay safe. They just start to lose ground quietly without realizing it, while the founders around them, the ones who went in and figured it out, started operating at a level that feels inexplicable from the outside. The second conversation is performance. And honestly, I find this one more frustrating than the fear camp, honestly, because at least the fear camp is being honest about their uncertainty. The performance camp, those are the people who are loudly declaring that they are AI first and fully automated, and they're running their entire businesses at a fraction of the cost with what they once paid for a team. When what they actually mean is that they've asked ChatGPT to write a caption last week and it saved them about 20 minutes. That is not a system, that's a tool. And there is a massive difference. What the performance camp is doing, even if they don't realize it, is making this whole AI thing look easy. And when something looks easy and then actually turns out to be genuinely hard, the people who tried it and struggled quietly assume that they're doing something wrong. They assume that they missed something. They assume that maybe they're just not the kind of person who's good at this whole AI thing. But the fact is, they're not doing it wrong. It's just actually hard. And nobody in either camp is saying that out loud. So today, I want to offer a third conversation, and a really honest one, from someone who went in early to this whole AI thing, not because I had it figured out, but because I just made the decision that I was going to figure it out, and who is now someone that has built something that actually works inside my own business and inside the businesses of many of my clients too. So this is what I actually know. This is not what I've read, not what I've heard. This is what I know from being inside this whole AI world and trying to figure out where we go from here. And I think that matters to you, specifically to you, building what you're building in ways that neither of the other conversations will ever tell you. Okay, quick pause. I want to tell you about working with me directly. I work with founder-led businesses in two ways. The first, AI integration. I find the workflows that are eating your time, I build the systems, and then I hand them to you running, done for you. The second is a full profit growth plan. It is a deep dive into your business where we get clear on exactly what needs to change so that you can operate that business at the next level. And I build the roadmap to get you there. Then I do the full implementation of all of the tools and tricks and AI that you need to get to that next level in your business. Both start the same way, a 20-minute Zoom where I show you what I'd find inside your specific business. The link to grab a time is in the show notes. Book it, and let's build what's next for you. So let's start here. What's actually happening? Let me give you a way of thinking about this that actually helped it click for me, because I spent a long time trying to just understand what was actually different about this moment and why it actually felt more significant than other technology shifts I'd watched happen in business before. And then someone gave me an analogy that I haven't been able to let go of since. And I'm going to give it to you now because I think it makes the whole thing kind of come together. So imagine you've been swimming your whole life. You started in a lap pool when you were a kid, totally controlled environment, lanes, you knew where the walls were. Then you got better and you moved into a lake. No lanes, but you learned to navigate this bigger environment. Then you navigated the open water, real currents, real waves, real unpredictability. And every time the environment got harder, you adapted. You got stronger. You got smarter about reading the water. You became an excellent swimmer. You are proud of being a good swimmer, and you should be. It took you years to get to that place. And then the water boils. Not gradually, not with warning. It just changes. It changes state entirely. The environment itself changes. And now here you are flapping your arms in steam. And it does not matter how good of a swimmer you are because the physics of the environment have fundamentally changed and your skills were built for a totally different medium. That is what is happening in business right now. It's not an upgrade. It's not a new feature set, not a better version of the tools that you already use. It is a phase shift. The environment itself is changing, and the skills and systems and structures that made you excellent in the previous environment, they are not automatically the ones that will make you excellent in this one. Now, I want to be really specific about what changed because I think that this is where most of the conversation starts to get really vague and honestly stays vague. And vague doesn't help you make decisions. Here's the specific thing that changed, and it's important. The cost of intelligence is going to zero. Let me say that again because I really want it to land for you. The cost of intelligence is going to zero. For the entire history of business, every business and every industry since the beginning of commerce, if you needed smart help, you paid for it. You needed a writer, you hired a writer. You needed a researcher, you brought in a researcher. You needed someone to analyze your numbers, draft your proposals, synthesize your market data, organize your thinking, edit your communications. You paid a person to do that, and a really smart person. And smart people are expensive and slow to hire, and they have lives and limits, and they turn over, and then you have to start again. But that was the deal. That was the constraint that every single business operated under. Now, you have access to something that can do a first pass on almost any thinking task in under a minute. at essentially no cost, available at any hour, without management overhead, without HR complexity, without taking 3 months to hire someone and get them up to speed. It has never been true before, ever. In the history of commerce, there has never been a moment where cognitive labor, the work of thinking and drafting and analyzing and synthesizing, was available at this scale and this speed for this cost. And that changes the math of building a business in a way that's not incremental. That's not a 10% efficiency gain. It's a restructuring of what's entirely possible in business today. And now, this is important. I want to be precise about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I am not saying AI does everything. I want to be really clear about that because I think overclaiming in this space is one of the things it's making it hard for people to get accurate information. I'm not saying it replaces your judgment because it absolutely doesn't. The strategic decisions, the relationship decisions, the creative decisions that require taste and experience and context and history, those are yours and they will remain yours. I'm not saying it replaces your voice either. If you've built a business on the strength of how you communicate, how you connect, what you stand for, that is not replicatable. Not yet, at least, and I'd argue not ever in the way that honestly matters. What I'm saying is this: the parts of your business that are not those things, the execution work, the first drafts, the research passes, the formatting, the follow-up sequences, the reporting pulls, the organizing and structuring of information, those parts just got dramatically cheaper and faster to do. And the businesses that figure out how to structure around that reality are going to operate at a different level than those that don't. Not eventually, but right now. The gap is already opening and you want to be first to market. Now, the two groups getting this wrong. I want to come back to those two conversations, the fear camp and the performance camp, because I think understanding specifically why they're both failing you is actually useful. It's not just interesting, it changes how you're going to approach this whole AI thing. So the fear camp, I said earlier, I understand the fear response, and I do, but I want to name what it's actually costing the people who stay in it, because I think sometimes when we say, I understand, we're letting people off the hook for a choice that has serious, real consequences that they are not thinking through. See, the fear camp is watching something happen and deciding that not engaging with it is the safer option. But in a market where your competitors are figuring this out, and some of them are quietly, without announcing it, not engaging isn't neutral. I'm going to say that again. Not engaging or deciding not to engage isn't neutral right now. It's in fact a directional choice. It's choosing to do the same things in the same ways while the operating costs and output speeds of the businesses around you, whether they're telling you or not, are rapidly changing. And here's the specific thing that I've watched happen. The founders who are staying in the fear camp don't fall behind dramatically all at once. What happens is they fall behind in small ways, consistently, over time. Their proposals take longer. Their content output is lower. Their team costs stay high while other businesses are doing more with less. And at some point, they look up and the gap feels too big to close. When actually, it never was. It just grew quietly while they were waiting for it to feel safer and safer to start. The woman I'm talking to isn't in the fear camp, but she might know people who are. So keep that in mind. Now, the performance camp, this one is worth spending some real time on. The performers are everywhere right now. And I want to be clear that I'm not talking about people who are genuinely building sophisticated AI operations in their businesses. Those people exist. I'm doing it for a lot of people. They're doing real work, and most of them are actually pretty quiet about it. I'm talking about the ones who've turned AI into a personality, who post constantly about being automated and optimized and AI powered. And when you actually look at what they're describing, it's totally surface level. It's using a tool to write a social media caption. It's having ChatGPT summarize an article. It's basic. It's one-off tool usage that is nowhere near the kind of systematic integration they're implying. And why does this matter to you? Because it sets a false expectation. When someone makes something look easy, when they present a complex, genuinely difficult thing as if it's simple, and anyone who isn't doing it just hasn't gotten around to it, they do damage to the people watching. Because those people try it, they follow the very vague advice, they spend an afternoon with a tool that they don't fully know how to use yet, building something that isn't working the way that they expected, sounding familiar, producing output that doesn't sound like them or fit their workflow, and they think, I must be doing something wrong. Other people seem to find this easy. Maybe this just isn't for me. Listen to me. It is for you. It's absolutely for you, but it's not easy. Not at first. And the people telling you that it is are either at a stage of fluency that you haven't reached yet, or they're performing or pretending. The truth is, somewhere, nobody is standing right now. And it's a real shift. It takes real work to figure out. The learning curve is genuine. It is not linear, which means some days you'll feel like you have cracked it, and other days you'll want to throw your laptop out the window. And both of those days are part of this process of moving into this AI world. And on the other side of that process is a business that operates in a way that most of your competitors haven't caught up to yet. That gap between the founders who have done the work and the ones who haven't is the real opportunity right now. Hear me on this. Not because you get to feel superior to anyone, but because when you can operate faster, cheaper, and with more consistency than businesses around you, the compounding effect of that advantage begins to be significant. I've watched it happen in my own business. I've watched it happen in the businesses of my clients. The gap is real, you guys. And frankly, it is growing. So what this means for how you think about your business, let's tackle that. So let's make this practical. What does this actually mean for you and the business you're building right now? I want to give you one mental model, not a list of tools, not a framework of 7 steps, one shift in how you think, because I believe one clear shift in thinking is worth more than 10 action items you're never going to get to. Here it is. Stop thinking about your business in terms of roles. Start thinking about it in terms of tasks. I'm going to say that again because it sounds so simple and it's not. Stop thinking about your business in terms of roles and start thinking about it in terms of tasks. When most founders think about getting help in their business, and I've had this conversation with hundreds of business owners over the years, they think in terms of job titles. I need a content person. I need someone for admin. I need a VA. I need a marketing assistant, right? I need a customer service rep. And then one of two things happens. Either they can't afford to hire that person at the level they actually need, so they either underhire, or they don't hire at all and keep doing it all themselves. Probably sounds familiar too. Or maybe they do hire someone and then they spend the next 3 months onboarding them, managing them, correcting them, and dealing with the overhead of having another human being in their business who has their own life and their own capacity and their own limitations. Neither outcome is what they were hoping for when they decided that they needed help. Here's the thing. The new question, the question that actually opens things up, is simpler. What are the actual tasks that make up that role that you feel like you need? Not the job description you'd write for Indeed, not the title, the actual real tasks. The things that actually happen when you watch someone do that job for a whole week. The specific, discrete, repeatable actions that make up what you're calling content or admin or marketing. Write the first draft of a social post. Pull the monthly performance report. Send the follow-up email to a wholesale inquiry. Format the proposal. Research 3 competitors before a pitch call. Answer the FAQs from a new customer. Schedule the content for the week. Each of those things is a task. And for each of those tasks, you can ask a clarifying question. Does this require human judgment, human relationships, or human creativity to do it well? Or is it primarily execution? Because execution tasks, the things that need to happen but don't need a human to happen, are exactly what's changing. Those are the tasks where AI can do a genuinely excellent first pass in a fraction of the time it would take a person. Where with the right setup, the right training, the right system, you can essentially remove yourself and your team from that loop entirely for that specific task. And when you start looking at your business through that lens, task by task, not role by role, you start seeing opportunities that were not visible before. Massive opportunities. You start realizing that what you've been calling content creation is actually 15 distinct tasks, and 12 of them are execution tasks where AI can do the heavy lifting for you first. You start realizing that what you've been calling follow-up is actually a workflow that runs the same way every single time, which means it can run automatically. And that realization, you guys, changes everything. The founder who makes this shift doesn't just save time, though she does save time. Real time, hours upon hours per week, we're talking about, sometimes even more than that. She changes her capacity. She can do more without adding headcount, which means her margins improve. She can scale without the operational friction that usually comes with scaling, all the hiring and all the training, the management layer that typically has to grow alongside that revenue that in the past has deterred you from massive growth. Most importantly, she gets to keep the parts of her business that are irreplaceable: her voice, her expertise, her judgment, her relationships, her vision, the things that are genuinely hers and cannot be replicated. And she stops spending her best hours, her most creative, most strategic, most valuable hours on the parts that aren't. That's not a small thing, you guys. That's the difference between the current version of your business and the next version of it, between the business you're running now and the business you're building towards in the future. I've seen it happen. I built it in my own business and I've built it for my clients. One client got back 12 hours a week from a single workflow automation, 12 hours. That's not a marginal improvement. That's a restructuring of what her entire week looks like. Another client had a wholesale follow-up sequence that was entirely manual. Her team they were sending individual emails to every new inquiry every time from scratch. We built one workflow and now it runs automatically. Sends personalized follow-ups at the right intervals, and her response to order conversion rate went up because the follow-ups are actually consistent for the first time ever. It's not dependent on how someone feels that day. That's what the roles to tasks shift looks like in practice. Not theoretical, not vague, specific, operationable, and measurable. So here's what I want you to know before you start. I want to leave you with something honest before we close. I jumped into this earlier than most of the people in my world, not because I had some sort of clear strategy or a roadmap or any particular confidence that I knew I was doing the right thing, but because I decided I was just going to figure it out, that the cost of not figuring out was higher than the cost of fumbling through it. And I want to be real with you about what figuring it out actually looks like, because I think this is the part that would have been most useful to me when I started. And it's the part that I feel like most people just skip over. Almost nobody talks about it. It was not seamless. It was not fast. It was not the story I would tell if I were performing. I tried tools that didn't work for my business. I built workflows that I had to completely tear down and rebuild. I spent time, real time, significant time, hours upon hours learning how to communicate with these tools in a way that produced output that I could actually use. There were days where I sat down with something for 2 hours and walked away with absolutely nothing useful. There were weeks where I questioned whether I was doing this right or just adding more complexity to my business. I was not doing it wrong. It just takes time. It takes calibration. It takes a willingness to be bad at something while you get good at it, which, if you've been running a successful business for years, it is genuinely uncomfortable. Because you're used to being good at things now. You've earned that. And starting over as a beginner at something, even in one specific domain, takes a type of humility that nobody warned you about. And here is what I kept coming back to every time. It was so frustrating. This is the hardest it's ever going to be. I mean that exactly as it literally sounds. Right now, today, this is the hardest that learning and building with AI is ever going to be. The tools are getting better, faster than almost anything I've watched ever in business. It is mind-blowing. The interfaces are getting more intuitive. The outputs are getting more accurate. The integrations are getting more and more seamless. Every month that passes, this becomes marginally easier for someone starting fresh, which means every month you wait, you're not just losing ground to the people who started before you. You're also spending your future time on a learning curve that's getting flatter, but that you'll still have to climb. Every hour you invest in figuring this out right now is worth more than the same hour a year from now. Because the founders who start early, who go through this hard part while it's still hard, get a compounding advantage. You just do. They have more time in the system, more experience with what works, more workflows already built and running, more data on what's performing and what's not. That advantage does not transfer. It cannot be bought later at the same price. It's only available to the people who put in the time right now. And it is not too late to start. I absolutely want to be clear about that. It is not too late, but it's not going to be easy to wait. And the founders who go further, the ones who look up in 2 years and realize their business operates completely differently than it did, they're the ones who made the decision to start before they felt completely ready. So next week, I'm going to get personal about what this actually looks like inside my own business, the real version, not the cleaned up version, the specific tools I tried that didn't work, the workflows that finally did, what my business looks like now that all these systems are running, and what I would do differently if I were starting from scratch today. That episode is the most practical thing I'm going to give you this season, trust me, but I needed you to hear this one first because I wanted you to understand the stakes before we get into the how. The shift is real. The opportunity inside it is real. It is massive. And the fact that you're here, the fact that you found this, that you've listened this far, that you're thinking carefully about where this fits into your business instead of either panicking or performing, that tells me something about who you are. You're the kind of founder who moves thoughtfully and then moves decisively. You don't jump at every trend, but you also don't sit out the things that matter. And this matters a lot right now. If this episode landed for you, share it with the person in your world who you think needs to hear it. The founder who's been watching AI from the sidelines, the one who keeps saying she'll get to it. It stays on her to-do list though. Send it to her because sometimes what people need isn't more information. It's just someone they trust saying, this is real and you're ready to go for it. And then come back next week because that episode is the one I really want you to hear. And I'll see you then. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of The Sallie Ogden Show. I will see you next time.